You guessed it, the Beatles.
As the 1960s faded into the 70s, the Beatles were no more. The 70s would bring new chapters for each of the Fab Four. For John Lennon, that meant a new wife and a new home in New York.
People keep asking us, why do you want to live here, especially New York? It's so terrible and all that. But we love it. It's the greatest place on earth, and if this was Rome, I want to live in Rome, not in Wales.
The 70s also saw Lennon take a more vocal stance in opposition of the Vietnam War.
And grow your hair.
Yes,
For peace. Let it grow till peace comes.
Lennon had long been involved in the anti-war movement. He wrote the movement's adopted anthem, "Give Peace a Chance." But his visibility put him in the administration's crosshairs, just as a president was running for re-election. Once in New York, his association with prominent activists landed him under surveillance by the FBI. Then in March of 1972, Lennon's visa was revoked, and the White House launched an effort to deport the most famous rock star on the planet.
Will you now stop speaking out against the war?
No, nothing will stop me, and whether I'm here or wherever I may be, I'll always have the same feelings and say what I feel.
The Lennons attracted a crowd at the Immigration and Naturalization Office in Lower Manhattan. They held hands throughout the 30-minute hearing as their attorney Leon Wiles argued against deportation. He asked for more time to try to get the marijuana conviction removed from Lennon's record in England. He also asked for time to secure several prominent witnesses, possibly a member of Congress and a member of Parliament, to testify as character witnesses. Another complicating factor is Mrs. Lennon's 8-year-old daughter by a former marriage. The child is still with her father despite a court order giving her legal custody. Although Mrs. Lennon could be granted citizenship, she contends that deporting her husband would force her into an unfair choice between him or her child.
What's the status of your search for your child?
Well, we just can't find her, and it's frightening, really. And what the immigration is asking me to do, really, is to take a decision on whether choosing my husband or my child.
Years later, CBS News would learn the idea of deporting Lennon actually came from Senator Strom Thurmond. The Republican from South Carolina sent a letter to the White House. 1972 was the first year 18-year-olds would be allowed to vote, and Thurmond advised deportation over facing millions of young Beatles fans at the poll.
When Senator Thurmond sent that little missile and sent a copy to the White House as well, he knew what he was doing, because he was strongly committed to the re-election of Richard Nixon.
The government's case centered around a marijuana conviction Lennon had on his record from England.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
A few years earlier, Lennon had pled guilty to a misdemeanor, and the letter of the law banned anyone convicted of a drug offense from entering the country.
But we didn't know anything about it those days. They said, plead guilty or we'll get you for a, what is it? Obstruction.
The government claimed there was nothing they could do.
His problem seems to be the marijuana conviction. And while that stands, there's no form of relief that's possible in his case.
The case would prove the opposite and would bring to light the discretion immigration officials actually have in who gets deported.
They're even sort of changing their own rules to get us, just because we're peaceniks, really.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because of your anti-war action and not your marijuana conviction then?
Well, I mean, let's say that a few friends of ours in the pop business have exactly the same conviction as me and are allowed to come and go as free as they like. They just don't happen to have the same point of view as me, or they don't state it.
But at the time, Lennon needed as much help as he could get. The list of those who wrote INS on Lennon's behalf reads like a who's who of 70s pop culture. Musicians like Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, novelist John Updike, and composer Leonard Bernstein, among others. By October 7, 1975, John Lennon was victorious, and the victory coincided with another milestone.
I called John, and I said, we won the case. Well, he said, Leon, do me a favor. I'm just going to the hospital. At New York Hospital, he said, I'll be there in a few minutes. And Yoko is giving birth. We got home at about 1 or 2 o'clock. And I was out cold when the phone rang, and I said, "Who is this?" He said, "This is John." I said, "John who?" He said, "John Lennon, and I have a beautiful boy."
All along, Lennon had professed his desire to stay in the States.
Does that mean you're seeking permanent citizenship?
Yes, we are.
Permanent residence.
Yeah.
What is the status of the
I
search for the
cowboy
child?
boots.
In '76, he finally got his green card, and New York City would be his home until his death.
I just feel overwhelmed because, as usual, there's a great woman behind every idiot. And she's the one, and she kept me together. You know, I would have fallen apart a long time ago. And she pulled me through it, and here I am. I thank her, and God bless her.